If you see my video I just made about a C8 Corvette potentially get a manual transmission in the near future, also learned in an article that the Mustang GTD, Ford's 400 grand super Mustang, can also use the exact same transmission to get a manual transmission as well in that particular vehicle. So now the odd man out Dodge, will they ever decide to put a manual transmission back into a Dodge car? Could we ever see one in the new Charger? Could we ever see one in the rumored $30,000 sports car? Or maybe see one in the rumored Dodge Viper that's supposed to make a return in the next couple of years? So I want to ask you guys the question, with the new Charger we know for sure coming out with a Hemi V8 engine, should Dodge make the effort to bring a manual transmission back? And so I want to talk about all that stuff in this video basically right now. Okay, I'm over 53,000 friends, and the 56% of you guys who are watching these videos over and over again and haven't hit the subscribe button, help a butter out. Hey, I need to get to 100,000 subscribers. You need to get as much information as you can. So this is a win-win situation in this relationship. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and find a little hype button if you're on a mobile browser, or not a mobile browser, but a mobile device. And while you're at it, go grab you some merch from out of my merch store. And you go grab you some cheap parts before Christmas from my friends at Drag Racing Wheels, and just boat them. So let's get right into this video. The manual transmission, I hold that very dear to my heart. Cause when I was like 15, 16, having to go and take my first trip and learn how to drive my first car, my mother had a manual transmission Grand Cherokee or a regular Cherokee, whichever it was, that boxy little Cherokee back there in the day. That's what we had. That was my first vehicle I learned how to drive on. And that was the vehicle I had to take to go do a driving test. So let's just say I learned from an early age not to make any sharp turns in a lifted SUV with a manual transmission and stuff. So I understand, like, I don't understand how you guys back in the day in the 60s and 70s, when you guys grew up in that time period where literally almost everything was manual transmission and stuff. I can see it was fun to me. It was kind of like a chore, kind of hard to learn, but it's like riding a bike. Once you learn how to drive a manual transmission one time, you literally always know for the rest of your life. And it seems as though for literally majority of my life, I want to say at least half the vehicles I've owned have been manual transmission cars. Like literally every car I had through high school was manual transmission other than one. And then until when I got to college was the only real time I didn't have a manual transmission car. And so that basically continued all the way up until 2016, where my only cars I've had with Stellantis has basically been, or FCA back then, but every Challenger I've had, except for my D17, has been manual versions of the car. I love my Challenger RT manual so much. Man, that RT Challenger, I drove it everywhere. I bought it in freaking Boston and stuff. Drove it around Boston. I shipped it myself to, I shipped it with my other stuff to Denver, Colorado. Drove around Denver. So I took that car around the country and I drove the ever living piss out of it. And it was fun, smiles per gallon type fun. And the next, 2 years later, I stepped up my game. I didn't go for a Scat Pack. I'm not a Scat Pack type of guy. I jumped up to the Big Daddy, because the Big Daddy in time at 2017 was the Hellcat. So I got me a nice 6-speed manual Hellcat. And if I had so much fun with an RT Challenger back then, could you imagine me going from like 300-400 horsepower to like 700 horsepower and literally just a big jump like that? I'm like, I was giddy as a schoolboy with how awesome that car was. And my first Challenger is definitely one of those cars. Like I have like a little collection of keys of cars that I knew I was gonna miss the most. And that right there is probably my most favorite Challenger that I missed. My only reason why my D170 is even an automatic in the first place, because they didn't offer one. And if I had a chance to get a D170 with a manual transmission, oh, you dang Skippy, I would have did that, because I love manual transmission cars. And so it's kind of bummed me out that, you know, the C8 Corvette, for example, does not have a manual transmission, but it's so awesome that right there at SEMA, that Tremec basically introduced a new manual gearbox for mid-engine cars. And the cool thing while I was reading about it was that transmission can take up to like 1,000 horsepower and 800 foot-pounds of torque. So that could literally be like for I mean, if a red eye was a mid-engine vehicle, that transmission would work with a red eye stuff. So I'm just saying, if Dodge brings back a Viper, there's already transmissions sitting. If they're gonna make a manual transmission version, that'll work with Hellcats, 392s, and let's just say some very interesting red eye power engines stuff. But like I said, I love manual transmission cars. The majority of vehicles I own, especially cars, have been manual transmissions. And I guess you can really say the only reason why I have not went 100% manual is because the vehicles that I have owned never offered a manual option. But I'm the type of person where I like rolling through the gears. I like it to be fun as crap. Like, I was thinking about it when I made my last video about the Z06. So I got a Z06, but I'm going like, would I want to have an automatic Z06 or do I want to have a manual one? That would be like one of those questions. I'd be like, that'd be very interesting. I'm like, I wouldn't know how to answer that. Like, the only way I could be like, it's like something that I go to like a thought process, but every chance I got to get a manual car, I always took it because I love it. One thing, majority of y'all little young kids that try to steal these cars, y'all can't drive stick anyway, so that's a great theft deterrent for one thing. Then your family don't know how to drive one, so they can't go drive your car when you're gone doing stuff. So that's why I love manual transmission. Just that raw emotional feel that just you can go shift to whatever gear you want, do whatever you want, and you just had just that skill. I love manual transmission cars. So that's what brings me into this video right here, because if the C8 Corvette throughout its entire lineup gets a manual transmission, hopefully trim it, makes this into a production car. Well, not really trim it, but hopefully GM will do is probably like sometime for what, 2027 model year. It won't be 2026, and that's already in production. Because I have a sneaky suspicion that Chevy redesigned the interior of the C8 Corvette because they knew that the transmission was coming and stuff. So I'm thinking they redesigned the interior, especially right there on the area that a gear shifter would be at. That way they can accommodate it in the near future and stuff, because it's kind of suspicious why they just did that update just to the interior and didn't really do anything to the exterior. And I think that might be the reason why. So I'm just gonna say, if the Corvette can get a manual option, the Blackwing has a manual option. Of course, Mustangs have a manual option and stuff. Now the GTD has a manual option. Basically, Dodge is on the clock. I mean, should they bring back a manual transmission in the Dodge Charger, since that is 100% the one car we know that is going to have a Hemi sooner rather than later? And I mean, I would say that, I mean, other than that car being a freaking huge car, I think they should offer a manual option in that car. Because I mean, if you go look at the interior of the new Dodge Charger Daytona, they already have that little pistol grip shifter right there. And I'm telling you, it's perfect location for them to put the manual gear shifter at, because when I was test driving one for a few months, now I was test driving a Charger Daytona, so it's the electric version. But when I was test driving one, that gear shifter is in the perfect spot for you to daggone go and rack through the gears and all that stuff. I didn't really pay attention to the pedals on the floor to see whether there's enough room to have 3 pedals down there. But as big as that car is, I don't think there's gonna be a problem with getting 3 pedals in the Dodge Charger, especially the new one. So I think, you know, I just want to know from you guys down below, do you guys think that we should have a manual version of the Dodge Charger? And if they don't make a manual Dodge Charger, what other vehicles that we know that Dodge is coming out with should they put a manual in, right? I mean, honestly, they're gonna do that $30,000 Dodge, you know, subcompact or compact $30,000 sports car stuff. And now rumor is it's supposed to be called the Duster. I mean, that'd be a pretty cool car to have a manual option there, and basically have like a Dodge version of the Miata. And I mean, that'd be a pretty cool option. That'd be, especially if it's like 20-30 grand and you can go roll through the gears. And hopefully fingers crossed that they have some forethought and put enough room in that engine bay to squeeze a Hemi in there. And I mean, could you imagine like a little tiny little sports car with a 392 or a Hellcat in there? Take my money, especially on like 20-30 grand. As much as these cars cost nowadays, if you get a $20,000-$30,000 car that can have a Hemi swap in there, you can buy 2 of those for the cost of like 1 Charger. So I'm just saying. And then, I mean, and then the other case is, since I already been talking about the C8 Corvette and stuff, I mean, there's definitely rumors that Dodge will come out with a mid-engine Viper. They might not call it a Viper, but we all understand the assignment and we know that's what that car is going to be based off. It's going to be based off of Viper, be based off of a Viper replacement to go against the C8 Corvette. And the cool thing is now is that they do make a mid-engine They can go to trim it just like Chevy did, and they already have a automatic transmission. They already have a manual transmission sitting there and stuff. So there's no reason for them not to make a mid-engine version of the Viper and stuff. I mean, there's already, all the stuff is already there. All they gotta do is basically just made a Hemi to it, and I think you're done. I think that's the only reason why they're not gonna call it a Viper. Well, maybe two reasons, right? Everybody who wants a Viper wants a front engine V10, and then secondly, they want it front engine. They don't want it mid-engine or rear engine, however you want to call it. So I think that's why they're going to change the name of the car and make a more modern version that's going to basically outperform the Viper and stuff. And thankfully with Tremec, they can have an automatic version and a manual version. And if it's me, depending on how fast that car truly is and what engine's in there, if it's a V10, I would definitely get a manual option. If it's like a Hellcat version, I'll have to be very, very, it's iffy what I would do in that option, but I just want to have the option. And my dear friend, he basically said that, yeah, Americans want options. So, hey, I think this would be a great way to get everyone to have options. Hey, you want a Hurricane automatic, or you want a Hurricane freaking manual? You want a Hellcat automatic, or you want a Hellcat manual? And then, I mean, hopefully they'll go make a red-eye versions of these vehicles and give us manual options and stuff. We have 7, 8, 9 horsepower with a manual transmission. That'd be pretty cool. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Do you guys think we should get manual options in the Dodge Charger? Should the new vehicles that Dodge gonna come out with, like the new Duster or the new Viper, should those get manual transmission options as well too? Let me know down in the comment section down below. If you want to check out the video I just made about the 5 clues that a Hemi Cuda, probably a 426 Hemi Cuda, is coming in the near future, and check out this video right here. And until the next time, I'm out.